Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Something with Eric Newman. I am Eric Newman. Very excited to be coming from the studio here at my home comedy club, the Comedy Cellar, where myself and my two producers have moved to as of a few weeks ago. The new topic of this week's episode is ED pills, erectile dysfunction pills, blue pills, whatever you want to call them. I will not call them by their brand name in case we eventually want a sponsorship. I'm not even sure I'm supposed to be saying that as far as increasing my odds of getting a sponsorship, but who knows? Anyway, let's talk about ED pills. I want to talk about this because I know as a 38-year-old man, they've really impacted my life a lot. And I heard from my therapist recently that she has a lot of clients who are much, much younger than me who have, explored this world of ED pills. First of all, I always like to start very personal. I took my first blue pill or ED pill when I was 26 years old. I remember very clearly. I started hooking up with this woman. I was 26. She was, I guess, probably around my age now, late 30s. Very wealthy woman, divorced, very recently divorced. And I was actually her daughter's camp counselor for a few years when she was really, really young. And so we knew each other on that level for a while. And then I ended up doing a private gig for her that I was recommended for. And then her and I ended up, doing stuff. It was interesting because I had never experienced an older woman before, and I'll never go back. God, so many people are going to hate that. And I had an okay amount of sexual experience at that point, but I had never been with a woman who was a lot older than me and who was a lot more experienced, and she had just been recently divorced. And so we were hooking up at her place, and I just got nervous. I just got really nervous, and I could not get an erection or at least maintain it for long enough to get it from the inside of my pants to inside of her. That's sometimes a very long journey. Women don't realize. I mean, it's a long journey, right? Yeah. It's a lot of travel time from the inside of your boxers to inside her or wherever else you're putting it. And you have to wear the condom, right? So there's that whole process, right? You have to get naked, right? You have to get hard. You have to stay hard long enough to get the condom on, if you're one of those people who are those. Just kidding, Mom. I've never had sex. But there's a lot of travel time there, and I think a lot of women don't really understand the journey that men go through in throughout that experience. Getting the penis out of the pants, point A, that's the departure, and then the arrival is into the vagina at some point. And that travel time, that distance may only be a few seconds, but in a man's mind, it's so much longer because of the pressure of the situation. A lot has to go right to get from the pants to inside the vagina, and that's why we often rely on help of a blowjob or hand job, because that would be like, the layover, let's say, right? We depart from pants, we lay over in mouth or hand, and then we arrive in vagina. And that is a successful trip. Sometimes you crash into the ocean, man. I don't know what to tell you. And then you go home and you masturbate, and that's your life vest. That's your, you didn't die, but it was it felt like a close call. It felt like a really close call, and you're probably not going to be welcome back on that particular plane again. Or yeah, you're probably never going to be going to that particular destination again. So here's the one thing, and Zoran pointed this out earlier, and John, I think John agreed with it. As a guy, when you grow up, you're in your room and you're watching porn and you're masturbating and you're doing all this stuff, and all you fantasize about is the opportunity eventually down the road where you're able to sleep with a woman. But then when you actually get that opportunity, and many of you haven't, it's stressful also because there's all of a sudden all this pressure. The factor of getting an erection doesn't really occur to you when you're a teenager and you're fantasizing about sex eventually, because you never have a hard time getting an erection or maintaining an erection when you're on your own. I mean, it's very low pressure. It's you in a room by yourself. You know, your brother stepped out for 45 minutes to go to a doctor's appointment. You're just by yourself. And so there's no real pressure. You can take as much time as you need to get aroused. And oftentimes at that age, especially, like, you get aroused anytime from anything. There's really not any pressure at all. But then when you actually step foot for the first time into a room with a girl, all of a sudden now there's somebody else relying on you to get hard, and it becomes a little bit nerve-wracking. And I think every single guy has experienced this at some point. And to some degree, you never really stop experiencing it, right? I mean, I always say there's so many things that have to go right for a man to get hard and stay hard the entire time. And then fuck well, which is like, I mean, most of us never learn that, right? But, you know, it's funny because I don't think women really have any idea, nor should they have an idea about this because they've never experienced it. So if you're a woman and you're saying like, oh, I've never thought of it that way, I think you're just a normal woman, because I don't think there's any reason why you would have to. You know, oftentimes, like, women have said in the past, like, oh, sex isn't like, you know, it's not the be all end all for me. You know, it's like obviously I love it, but, you know, it's not the most important thing. It only becomes the most important thing when we can't get hard. Then it becomes the most important thing, because then you feel bad, we feel bad that you feel bad, we feel bad that we feel bad. It's just bad feelings, you know, being flung back and forth between two people. For example, when I was hooking up with this woman who was newly divorced, I was having kind of a hard time getting hard, and we got to call this episode Hard Time Getting Hard, right? That's a good Hard Time Getting Hard. That's going to be the name of the episode. And then YouTube's going to flag the shit out of it, but whatever. Anyway, I was having a hard time, and rightly so, and totally naturally, the woman that I was with was getting frustrated. I don't blame a woman for getting frustrated in that situation, because I think women often equate you not being able to get hard or stay hard, or were once hard but not hard anymore, with you not being attracted to them. But like I said earlier, so much has to go right for us to get and maintain an erection. It could have absolutely nothing to do with you, and most of the time doesn't. But you're still you're still a man who's now insecure because you have a tiny little baby penis, a little melt in your mouth, melt in your hand baby penis. I mean, this thing like disappeared in her hand, dude. There was a little blood flow there for a little while. And as she kept tugging and it wasn't working, I saw the frustration grow in her eyes. I was paying attention to her face. And then what happens is, then the nerves start to kick in with me, and then I just start getting smaller and smaller. So eventually she stopped. She kind of gave up, or I kind of was a little discouraging. I was like, hey, like maybe we should give it a little while or whatever. And we stopped, and she sat on the edge of the bed looking in the opposite direction, like sort of her like head in her lap, just like devastated over the fact that I wasn't able to get hard, which, again, totally understand her feelings, totally understand where she's coming from. That's not going to help me get hard. There's no amount of you vocalizing your frustration that's going to make a guy feel more comfortable to get hard if he's already in like a bad mental state for whatever reason. Anyway, we didn't have sex. We had sex a few times before that, but that time we didn't have sex. And that was pretty much the end of it. But I remember it really affected me. It really affected me because you're insecure. And as a guy, again, like, sex is so meaningful to men. Like, men want to have sex so badly. If you in some way feel like you can't, or oh my God, my nerves are going to get in the way of this sometimes, or I'm going to have performance anxiety and I can't do it. Like that really deeply hurts. And so I was battling those feelings of sort of being inadequate and insecure and not being able to live up to the task. And simultaneously, I was empathetic and felt badly for the girl who now just got out of a divorce and feels like she's not attractive or wanted or desired by a guy that she's attracted to, which wasn't the case. It really wasn't. It was just my headspace at that point. But you're sort of battling all of this simultaneously, and it hurts. So I remember I walked out of there and I was like, I got to do something about this. And so I looked into ED pills, which, by the way, I thought I was a weirdo. Like, I thought I was a complete weirdo, like oddball. I was like, am I like pathetic almost? I didn't want to tell anybody. I was so like ashamed of it. Turns out almost every guy I spoke to about it my age had tried it at some point or did it. Anyway, so I did it for a little while, and I did it, at least the first few times of sleeping with anyone, pretty much. There's exceptions to that, but I think like a lot of the time, I started doing it. I started taking these pills, and it's just like getting comfortable. And I've done them throughout the years. I don't do them on any type of consistent basis. And not as much anymore, but I've done them on occasion. I was talking to my therapist about it. It came up somehow, and this story, and she made me aware of the fact that guys who are like teenage boys are doing it now. It's very easy to get. There's a lot of generic versions of it. You really just like have to get a doctor's note, or you can order them online. There's a lot of ways to get them. And I want to talk a little bit about the psychology behind doing them, because on one hand, they're very helpful and very reliable. And on the other hand, you can get dependent on them. I used to have a joke that I did on my first album, Nervous Lover. The premise of the joke was I don't remember exactly the joke word for word. It's been so long. But the idea of the joke was sometimes I've taken Viagra and then didn't end up having sex. You ever take Viagra and not end up having sex? Even the way you approach women is different when you're on Viagra. I'm like, you want to come home with me? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, you have 4 hours to decide. That was the basic joke. Yeah, but no, I wanted to sort of talk about the effects of it. Okay, so I've heard. Okay, so maybe eyesight is affected, but eyesight goes to shit anyway. Right? Might as well have your eyesight go to shit with a hard dick. I don't have to see my dick as long as I could feel it and know that it's hard. Yeah. Oh, no, you can't go up past 100 milligrams. Well, that's the other thing. It's like, it depends on the dose. I mean, I've always taken like somewhere between 20 and 50 mostly. I guess I have taken 100 before. But I have friends who have taken like 200-300, where I'm just like, dude, that's not even, I mean, that's true. You're right. You do have lower blood pressure. That's never going to be an issue. But yeah, no, I do think it's weird. It is strange, though. Like, it's interesting, though, because the idea of, like, as much as we say it's like a nerve-wracking experience and, like, something that I think, like, a lot of women don't think about, or because I think if you can't get hard with a woman, her immediate responses are either he's not attracted to me or he's gay, which are kind of the same thing, right? But, like, the idea that if you don't, and I mean, I've gotten and anybody that I've had consistent sex with over time, I've had the experience of at some point or another not being able to get hard, depending on, the circumstances or whatever. If we're having consistent sex, it's just going to happen, probably more than once. But there's always that fear. I just don't think women will ever understand that experience, that psychology of just like, we want to have sex so badly, but sometimes we just can't. For whatever reason, it's just not in the cards in that particular moment. So these pills kind of aid that. But the other thing is that the experience of getting hard on your own without that being a factor, without that being involved, without there being any assistance or whatever you may call it, that it's in itself is part of foreplay. It is part of uphill climb to the top of the mountain. It is, you are kind of ridding yourself of that experience, that anticipation period. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to point out that if you're a guy out there and you struggle with this, and I know you do because I've never met a guy who doesn't to some degree, it's normal, and I hear you. But particularly at a very young age, and I understand how getting involved or experiencing something like I experienced can make you wanna just like do it forever. But I think there are better ways. And I think a lot of the time it involves being with the right partner who is like patient and understanding. I had a friend of mine who was using it for years, using pills for years, and then just stopped. And he says like, he's like, I don't really need them anymore because now I don't really, like, he's been with his partner for 10 years, 15 years, and they're not like sleeping together on a very regular basis anymore. So he's like, I never need it because I'm not like, if I don't have it, I don't have it. Like it's not that big of a deal. But I think that's where all the pressure comes from, this idea that it is a huge deal. I don't know like the answer exactly, but I do think that like being with someone who's not gonna judge you or who you're gonna feel like it isn't the end of the world with if it does happen is like a big factor here. But I know it's just crazy to hear that like teenagers are using it now, or college kids are, it's just so accessible. And also you could make the argument that consistent ED pill usage is just avoiding. It's not dealing with the real issues that are going on, and those issues are anxiety and nerves. And well, there was also those pills you take for your hair. Those can also have a negative side effect of like it can affect your boners. That's scary. So everybody sort of has to assess their own situation, but settling for a sex life that is fully supported and consistently supported by pills, I do not think is the answer. I only think, these pills should be used the first couple times you sleep with someone, or first 3-4 years, whatever. And then anything after 5 years. I don't think that I'm just discouraging people from buying these pills, especially if, one of them want to sponsor our episode. But I do think that the idea of dependence on these pills are really a larger issue. So John asked a good question. He said, well, as an alternative to, not buying pills or using pills, maybe you go to therapy and you try to talk it out, you have a support system, and then, that's also costly. And then you don't have money to take girls out anyway. Well, you always have the option of being that teenage boy back in his room just jerking off. That is another that never goes away, man. It really doesn't. And by the way, after breakups as an adult, I become that guy again. I've become that guy again. Like I went no porn for a year and a half. My ex and I broke up, and then I watched porn again. I just like became that boy in his room again. But yeah, no, I think, and by the way, it's for some of those times, I popped Viagra just to jerk off. Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that? I've popped Viagra just to jerk off. It's different, man. It hits different. And then the other issue is, or the other thing to think about here is like, it's funny because women oftentimes will feel insecure when you can't get hard in front of them, and they think, oh, you're not that attracted to them. In many cases, like in the case with that woman who was newly divorced that I was hooking up with who was older than me, I'm more attracted to them. Like, it's almost like, this isn't by any means like an objective statement, but oftentimes the more attracted you are to someone, the higher value you put on her, the more nervous you are going into the sexual experience which will oftentimes result in the softer you are. Seriously. Again, the whole idea that sex is a huge deal add stress to a man's life, and that sometimes results in like having trouble getting hard. So if it's just like someone you're like, whatever, like I'll sleep with them, it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes it's easier. So ladies, if you're ever about to hook up with a guy and he can't get hard, just know you are stunning to him. Gorgeous, most beautiful woman on earth. And that goes for the reverse too. If you're about to hook up with a guy and he's rock hard, leave immediately. He's not into you at all. There's nothing on the line for him. There's no stakes. He's just easy hard. That's a fucking easy one. I think you should take it as a compliment, ladies. I think if we can't get hard, the rule is it's because you're so beautiful that it's intimidating, and that's it. Okay, what if you... Well, actually, that's so funny. You know, I did a joke about how I was hooking up with this girl who was in AA, so I didn't drink with her. We never drank together, which is great because then when I couldn't get hard, it was all me, right? You can't can't blame the alcohol when there's no alcohol. But no, you're right. I think it's like whiskey dick. It's like you're just drinking a lot because you're very nervous with the person. Then you end up drinking too much and you can't get hard. And then beer goggles, you're just trying to get your vision blurry. That's so sad that we're just like, let's take a 4 and make her an 8. I could do something with this 4. Listen, if you wanna get hard, you have to not get hard for a lot of women first. You have to just disappoint woman after woman until you finally hit a woman that you know you can get hard for and feel confident with. And that's how you know she's the one. I think a lot of it is experience, but it's just mental toughness. It's like anything else. It's just staying mentally tough even when things are like even when you get discouraged or whatever. And the only thing I ask of women is that when you're involved in a situation like this, to kind of stay supportive and not be judgmental. Because I think from my personal experience, which was a really hurtful one, the idea that I was disappointing her and the fact that she was reacting to it very strongly and sort of almost like feeling badly for herself, it didn't help me at all. Like it just didn't feel, and I'm not saying I want like support. Like I don't need you to like come in and like aid me and like rub my head and like tell me it's going to be okay. It just needs to be like, all right, if I can't get it up right now, like we'll do it later. Like it's not that big of a deal. But I understand how as a woman that could feel very discouraging or even hurtful. So I think if you are using pills, I encourage you to use them in the beginning or to sort of like make yourself feel a little more comfortable as a crutch. Like I'm not saying like don't do it, but I think eventually it has an emotional impact on the relationship you're trying to build, and you are ignoring the nervousness and the anxiety, which is really the root of the problem. I mean, if you're a healthy younger guy, you know, you are able to get hard. And a good test of that, I think, is if you still masturbate and you're able to get hard, you can still get hard. So I think, you know, using it as a long-term solution on a consistent basis, I don't think is the best thing. Well, and then there's the case where, look, I've gone through periods, like longer periods of time of using it, particularly in my like late 20s. But I think almost the more you rely on it, the more nervous you are to have sex without it, right? So like if you go through a 3-year period of using it every sexual experience, I think it's going to be a longer way back to having sex without it, right? Because now there's an expectation that's sort of built up in your own head and your partner's head, you know, if it's the person you've been with consistently over time. So yeah, I think it becomes tougher. But maybe the solution is, again, either like when you meet a partner for the first time, instead of like relying on it for the beginning stages of that sexual relationship, maybe you just kind of go cold turkey and like give it a shot. And then if you don't you kind of come to terms with the fact that even if I can't get hard, I'll be okay. And maybe that's the way to do it, to just say to yourself, like, okay, maybe it'll be a little embarrassing, but I'll be fine. And maybe it's a person I won't see again. Like, it doesn't matter. We're all different people with different people. We're all have a different context in everybody's life that we've had sex with or whatever, you know. Well, that's the other thing. Maybe it's almost like you should start sleeping with people you're not as attracted to and seeing if you can do it that way. Because then if you can, then once you start sleeping with people you're super attracted to again, I mean, now we're just implying that we should be using people we're not into. Like, I don't know if that's the solution either, but yeah, you could there's always time down the road to disappoint women you're more into. Now's the time to disappoint women you're not that into. I think like a lot of like getting hard and performing to a level that you're proud of, a lot of that exists within the man completely separate of the woman, right? It almost has nothing to do with her. There's a lot of aspects of sex for a man, and one of them is just how was my performance. And so I know that we're not supposed to be thinking that selfishly when we're sleeping with people. I know that we're also supposed to be considering them and especially particularly if it's somebody you really value and care about, the idea that they're pleased and they're having a good time and you're connected together and you're really like, you're in it, both of you are in it simultaneously, is obviously the most important aspect of it. But you can't completely separate the idea that men just also just want to be good at sex. We want to know that we can satisfy. And part of that satisfaction is getting erect, staying erect, and finishing. But I think a lot of times guys, and this is our, I think, big flaw, is that we get so obsessed with the idea of performing well that we forget that we should just breathe, enjoy the moment, and have a good time with whoever we're having sex with. I think it's always sort of in the back of our minds that, like, we need to deliver this stellar performance, and if we don't, we're worthless as men, because that's what men are here to do. We're here to have sex. And I think it's just too much pressure. And I know that firsthand because I've put a lot of that same pressure on myself throughout the years, which, started with that woman. So I get that. And, the only thing I could sort of say is, guys, relax. Like, give yourselves a break. Sometimes we're just not in the mood. I know we're supposed to always be. I mean, there are times where I don't even know when I'm in the mood anymore. I think as a younger guy, as a guy in my like teens to early 20s particularly, I felt like I was always in the mood. And the stresses of life change things. There are times where I don't even really know whether I'm in the mood, not in the mood. I know that my default setting is always, oh my God, it would be nice to have sex. As you get older and you've had more sex, you're a little less sensitive towards those like moments of desire. I'm sure the way that as much as I love sex, I'm sure the way that I'm able to not watch porn, I'm sure I'm able to not have sex for periods of time. I don't have enough courage to put that to a test, by the way. I mean, do you guys feel, you guys are both in your 30s, do you guys feel that sex is on your mind the same at the rate it was when you were 18? Well, that was the quote, an unknown, right? Unknown quote. God gave men two heads and only enough blood for one. Again, like a lot of the time when we're not in the mood or can't get hard, it's because there's a lot going on up here, but it's tough. I get it. I understand the conflict. I guess all I'm asking guys to do is just be like honest about what's really going on. And what I'm asking of women is, when you're in this situation, just be sensitive towards it. There's not much that women have to do. I mean, like, it takes a lot to make a woman orgasm, and I'm very sensitive towards that. But as far as just starting to have sex, the beginning of the sexual experience, there's not much a woman needs to do that. I mean, she has to be willing, which I guess is a very hard thing. But other than that, like, it's pretty easy. I've gotten soft inside women. You think once you get hard, you enter, you figure, all right, I'm on easy street now. This is it. I've actually gotten soft throughout the sexual experience, which I can understand, could be traumatizing for a girl to. Chances are my mind is just in a different place. Your mind controls your dick. And if your mind isn't on right, so I just want everybody to be a little more sensitive and not put as much pressure on themselves or their partner. I think sometimes it's just not going to work. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was when I was using it very actively, there's a whole formula that goes into this whole thing because it says on the prescription bottle, take 1 hour before sex. So you'd always try to time it out to make it perfect, right? Because you don't want to take it too early. You don't want to take it in the morning and then you have sex at night and now you're like, oh, is it still working as well, right? You want to kind of the whole point of popping these pills are to alleviate anxiety. So you don't want to give yourself any chance of feeling extra anxiety from the experience, right? So if you take it too soon, maybe now you're going to be worried, oh, it's not going to work as much. And then now you have double worry. Now you've taken pills to make sure you get hard, and now you're worried that the pills you're taking to get hard won't work to make you hard. So now it's double anxiety, right? So what I did a bunch of times was I would go out to a bar with a girl on a date. She says, oh, I want to order a second round. And so I would but let's get out of here after that round. I would run to the bathroom, pop a pill, and then we'd sit there for another 45 minutes hanging out. And then I'll be like, okay, cool. We'll stay for 45 minutes. Then it's going to be a 20-minute walk back to her place. That's over an hour. I'm good. You got to hit the hour, baby. They said hour, that it says right on the package, 1 hour before sex. So you just got to hit within that range. So just make sure that if you're doing it, you're doing it right. Make sure you're timing all this shit out, because the last thing you want to do is she's like, oh, I want to have one more round. And she's like, well, how about I blow you in the bathroom right now before our second round gets here? And you're like, I can't yet. I'm not ready. I don't even blow me later in public. That's not hot. It's active for 4 hours. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an hour, but you want to hit at least, you want to take it 45 minutes prior. Let's say earliest 45 minutes prior, and then latest 4 or 5 hours. It's got to be within that window. That's a pretty healthy window. Yeah. You want to get back to her place within an hour or two of taking it, right? You're good. It's like prime dick time. It's prime time dick. It's dick prime time. It's whatever you want to call it. You just want to make sure that your pill usage is maximized. And so that's why and by the way, there's been plenty of times that I've taken pills thinking I'm going to have sex and then don't end up having sex. And now I'm just hard for my brother the rest of the night. I just my brother, I'm like, oh, my date wanted to go home early because she has work in the morning. And so now let's watch Saved by the Bell episodes together while I just have this really hard dick next to you on the couch for no reason. That's happened a lot too. So you just want to make sure you use it wisely. Misuse of this shit sucks, but you also have to time it out. Timing is a huge factor when it comes to it being effective, because the last thing, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I've actually had a couple times where it wasn't very effective. And that's the other thing. I do think at the end of the day, even though there's a chemical reaction and response that obviously assists you and helps you get an erection, I do think at the end of the day, it does have to do with your brain, because there's been a couple times before where I've actually taken it and it didn't work. And I realized that I was just in a terrible headspace and it didn't help me. And that's also a very hopeless situation that sucks, because it's just oh my God, now these my dick pills aren't even helping my dick. It needs to sort of be in your bloodstream. You can have some drinks or whatever, but you can't get you can't have a massive amount of food, a huge meal and then do it. It's not as effective. But I do think it's just very important to use it properly. And that's why your headspace is also so important. If you're having a terrible day and a lot is bothering you and you feel really anxious, maybe it's just your cue not to have sex. Maybe you don't have to pop pills to do that. if you're already in a place of sort of deficit, like mental deficit. But yeah, be responsible and time it out well. It makes the whole difference. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Something with Eric Newman. Shout out to Zoran, to John, and we will be back next week. And peace out from the Comedy Cellar.